Who's saying no to BC jobs and resource development? Not Labour.
My union has a proud history of working with First Nations group, and it's a great opportunity for them, and it's a great opportunity for my union.
Not First Nations.
We gotta have a future for these young guys. That's why I'm pushing for this new prosperity.
So what are British Columbians saying?
The resource sector is what keeps BC's economy going.
Does BC benefit from a growing resource economy?
It's a simple answer, yes.
Say yes to jobs and yes to BC.
Yesterday, a Muslim terrorist entered a chocolate shop in downtown Sydney, Australia, and took 21 customers and staff hostage. He said he had a gun and bombs, and that there were bombs elsewhere in Sydney, too. The terrorist immediately used some of the hostages as human shields, making them stand in front of the store's plate glass window with their hands up to block any police sniper shots. He also made them hold up the black flag of Muslim extremism, which you can see on the plate glass window, too. It's called the Shahada, and written that way on a black flag is a symbol of Muslim fundamentalism. The terrorist also had a Muslim headband on his head. Throughout the day, a few shopkeepers managed to slip away, and a few customers were able to run out too. But inside, it was terror. The terrorist forced several of his hostages to make videos of his demands. The terrorist wanted an official Islamic State flag. The black flag of the Shahada, used by terrorist groups like al-Nusra in Syria, wasn't vicious enough for him. He wanted the official, real flag of the Islamic State terrorist group that we're showing here. He wanted all the media to announce that this was an Islamic State attack. And he demanded the Australian Prime Minister call him on live national TV, surely for a propaganda opportunity. In the end, after midnight in Australia, coming up on 18 hours after the hostage-taking began, police stormed the restaurant. 3 hostages and 1 police officer were injured. Police confirmed 2 were killed, as well as the terrorist himself. He was identified as a Muslim immigrant from Iran, born Mantegi Bourjerdi, who also calls himself Manharan Monis and later called himself a sheikh. He was well known in Australia as a Muslim extremist, promoting the jihad.
It claims some women are to blame for being raped. He's also paid $500 to register a special phone number, 1300-4-Jihad.
Now, just in case you don't know what the word jihad means in the 13 years since 9/11, I'll tell you, it means a holy war, and he meant it. He was a Muslim version of the Westboro Baptist Church, sending hate letters to the widows of Australian military servicemen who died in Afghanistan, mocking their deaths and slandering them. But according to police, he went much further than just being a foul, malevolent hater. He was accused by police of being an accessory after the fact in the murder of his own first wife, although he was not yet convicted of that in the courts. But he was convicted of serially assaulting and molesting women under the auspices of being a Muslim cleric. He was a disgusting man, a hater who came to Australia to tear it apart. And this morning he did. He had been a media hound in Australia for years, which is no crime, but he had moved from mere hate to actual violence. He moved from merely booking a 1-800-JIHAD phone number to actually doing the jihad. It looks like he was on his own, just like the Muslim terrorist who killed Warrant Officer Patrice Vincent in Quebec was by running him down with a car, just like the Muslim terrorist who murdered Corporal Nathan Cirillo at a National War Memorial was and then went into Parliament itself looking to kill more. But that's an explicit strategy and tactic of the Islamic State terrorists. Whip up anti-Western Muslims, pressure them into the jihad, get them to come to Iraq or Syria if possible, but if not, have them murder in their own home countries. Here, watch this official Islamic State terrorist propaganda message told by a Canadian, John McGuire, instructing lone wolf-style murders here in Canada, just like the one Monis did in Australia.
You either pack your bags or you prepare your explosive devices. You either purchase your airline ticket or you sharpen your knife.
And really, the terrorists in Canada who killed the 2 soldiers, they could have done just the same as this guy in Australia. They could have taken over a coffee shop or a mall in Quebec or Ottawa, just like Monis did. They went for uniformed soldiers in our parliament instead. This terrorist in Australia went after a downtown restaurant, and he had a propaganda plan. But the strategy of the lone wolf is the same, the tactic of killing even one person in a spectacular event that shuts down a major Western city. Well, that's the definition of terror, isn't it? This raises questions about unfiltered immigration from countries where Islamic extremism is endemic. There are many fine people who have fled Iran precisely to get away from the Ayatollahs. And some reports suggest Monis himself was offside with the religious authorities there. He did convert to Sunni Islam. But there are also religious extremists from Iran, from Pakistan, Somalia, Egypt, and other countries who immigrate to the West. Like Canada, Australia does not screen for ideological or cultural compatibility. It doesn't ask basic questions of immigrants from terrorist-infested countries like, do you believe in democracy, the rule of law, the equality of men and women, a pluralistic, secular society with the separation of mosque and state? Do you believe in nonviolent solutions to political problems? They don't ask those questions, like we don't. And so they get extremists, like we do. This restaurant in Sydney was in the heart of the central business district in a busy commercial strip called Martin Place. It's not the first time terrorist flags have been flown in Martin Place. Here, look at this riot from 2 years ago.
The heart of Sydney today, where outrage got out of control. In Martin Place, Hyde Park, Market Street, hundreds of Muslim protesters gathered to protest a video on YouTube that insults the Prophet Muhammad.
Enough is enough, they just keep putting us down and down.
You cannot mock the greatest, most influential human being that ever walked the face of this earth.
At the MLC building, home to the United States Consulate, they tried to push through. Police rushed in reinforcements, while some in the crowd tried to calm the rest and failed. The protesters poured down Market Street.
It's just voicing our opinion. Yes. That's the least we can do.
Police pushed back using pepper spray. This officer was knocked out cold.
Did you see all the black flags there of the Shahada? There were also actual Islamic State flags there too. But in 2012, few people in the West knew what it was or what it meant. You cannot insult Muhammad, that one thug said. Just to be clear, what would be the penalty for insulting Muhammad?
The protesters held banners reading, "Behead all those who insult Islam," and "Our dead are in paradise, yours are in hell."
You'll be beheaded. You'll be murdered. Oh, but they didn't mean it, eh? Just some young kids blowing off steam, eh? You actually saw those children there, too. Well, are you surprised that a Muslim, a leader with a violent past, who had called himself had called for the jihad, are you surprised that he actually put his promise of jihad into action? I'm not. I'm only surprised that there haven't been more of these extremists putting their promises into action and actually beheading people. Australia is not new to Muslim extremism, as you can see by those riots. They're not new to the jihad. And yet, immediately upon the hoisting of the Shahada flag in the chocolate shop, what was the buzz in the media? It was that, no, this is not, repeat, not an Islamic State flag. No. Why would you even think that? I'm serious. Here's Yahoo News publishing what they call an explainer. Look at the headline there. It's not an Islamic State flag. Seriously, here, let me quote from the article itself. The statement is not hostile in nature and is widely used by Muslims in their daily lives and in Islamic events and prayers. So you've got a Muslim sheikh wearing a Muslim headband, flying the black flag of Muslim extremists, saying he's with the Islamic State terrorist group, requesting an official Islamic State flag, but Yahoo News is there to explain to all you stupid people, oh, that it's not an Islamic State flag, so nothing violent at all here about it. Yeah, got it. I swear, if we had the same media back in the Second World War, I bet there would be journalists saying, well, I don't know if they're really Nazis there. I mean, You know, let me explain to you while they're busy killing Jews and shouting Heil Hitler. You see that swastika? It's actually originally used in Hindu and Buddhist imagery, so maybe that's who's killing all the Jews and invading Poland, so don't be so anti-German. They didn't even wait until the hostage crisis was over. They were already blaming the victims, blaming Australian society itself. Look at this absurd Canadian press story written by Michael Heath. I mean, start with that absurd headline. Muslims condemn Sydney siege as racial tensions heightened over Islamic flag at site of hostage taking. This was published in the early hours of the siege as one of several routine news items by Canadian press on the Sydney hostage taking. Is this news story really, I mean, is the facts of the matter really that Muslims condemn the attack? Is that the biggest news out of Sydney yesterday? Or is the biggest news the terrorist incident itself? And is the racism and bigotry that's of most note here that of Australians? Or is it about, and is it really about the Islamic flag? Or is it the tensions brought to Australia by Islamic terrorists looking to replace Australia with an Islamic state? It's not that headline the exact opposite of the news? Isn't the news that a terrorist has come to Australia and racial tensions? Did you see the pictures and the videos of all the victims? Most of the victims were minorities themselves. But I see the impact of the Canadian press story as changing the Muslim terrorist from a terrorist into a victim. Let me quote a bit from his story. Seriously, this is the story that the Canadian press published in the middle of a terrorist attack in Sydney. These are the facts they selected to report. They said, in recent months, a mosque has been defaced in Queensland Gold Coast, and pamphlets were distributed in the state's northern tourist city of Cairns, urging the boycott of halal products. As crowds gathered behind police tape near Martin Place today, a Caucasian male shouted anti-Muslim racist abuse in the direction of the cafe before he was ushered away by officers. You got that? There were some pamphlets about halal meat, people. Surely you see the moral equivalence. Some Australian bigot doesn't like halal meat, and so some poor Muslim took hostages and a bunch of people are dead. Well, what else would you expect? And some Australian, Caucasian no less, actually was so mad at the terrorist that he hurled insults. Seriously, get that Caucasian and re-educate him, eh? He's showing too much fight in the face of terrorism. Oh, here's more from that same story. Anti-Muslim sentiment sometimes bubbles to the surface in Australia and reached a flashpoint in December 2005 at the Sydney seaside community of Cronulla, where the assault of a group of surf lifesavers by young men of Middle Eastern appearance led to retaliatory attacks. From that same article, seriously, you see, 9 years ago, some Muslims attacked lifeguards and women who wore small Australian bikinis. They were bigoted, racist, misogynist, but some Australians dared to fight back. Clearly the bullies here, am I right, Canadian press? I mean, Australia is to blame because they're so racist. I quote some more. More than 1 in 10 of Australia's 23 million people has racist tendencies. According to a university report released last year, the nation operated a discriminatory white Australia policy on immigration from Federation in 1901 that was only fully dismantled in 1973. So 41 years ago, they had a stricter immigration policy, and they're so racist, you see. I mean, clearly that's what caused this immigrant to take other immigrants hostage and kill them. Racism from 41 years ago. Here's some more. Muslims in Australia were more than twice as likely to be out of work, the report said, citing 2006 unemployment data. The western Sydney suburb of Lakemba, which had a Muslim population of 42%, had a jobless rate of 12%, it said. Oh, and poverty, of course. We all know poverty leads to terrorism. That's why Newfoundland has the most terrorism in Canada, right? Look, it wasn't just one person in the Canadian press or Yahoo News. It was tens of thousands of left-wingers who started tweeting, when the hostage crisis was still ongoing, started tweeting the hashtag, I'll ride with you. As in, we know Australia is so awful to Muslims, we left-wingers will ride with you on the bus to protect you from all the racists, like those racist Chinese hostages in the chocolate shop, really? Will you ride with these bigots too? These violent threateners, you know, to protect them, you self-loathing liberals. No Twitter trend in support of the hostages. No Twitter trend condemning the jihad. That's the thing. Here's the statement put out by senior Muslim leaders in Australia. The Grand Mufti and the Australian National Imams Council condemn this criminal act unequivocally and reiterate that such actions are denounced in part and in whole in Islam. We, along with the wide Australian society, await the results of the investigation about the identity of the perpetrators and their underlying motivations behind this criminal act. Well, we know what his motivation was. He told us in about a dozen ways, both before his attack and during it. But is this just a crime, as the imams say? Well, it is, of course, a crime, but Monis didn't see it that way. He saw it as part of a holy war, a jihad. Will the Grand Mufti of Australia renounce more than just the crime? Will he renounce the fact of the entire concept of holy war? Will he renounce the jihad itself? You see, they didn't use that word jihad in their condemnation, did they? Because they don't renounce it. And until they do, it's going to keep happening. Not just in Australia, but here too. More Source still ahead.